Hey guys, I'm the Clone, and in today's video I will show you how to play one behind, ultimately making a comeback and carrying your team to victory using the Eclipse build. I will start by explaining the build, how it works and the playstyle that goes along with it. Then I'll show you what runes I use. Afterwards, I'll give you examples of how to carry with a build, especially when you find yourself in situations where your team is quite behind. And if you copy what I like to do in those situations and the ways in which I like to help my team when they're behind, you'll have a much higher chance to come back and win. Because by carrying your team, you carry yourself. And I know that sounds kinda funny, but if you help your team and try as hard as you can, you'll get them to a point where they'll start helping you win the game. To start off, the build really does remind me of the Kraken Slayer build, where you want to have as much DPS and sustain as possible in order to be able to deal with both tanks and carries in the enemy team. But unlike the Kraken Slayer build, which has quite a few disadvantages, the Eclipse really does seem to be fixing most of them. The biggest problem with the Kraken Slayer was the bad power spike and the lack of burst damage, especially in the early game. The Eclipse completely fixes that problem with its passive, which not only gives you quite nice burst damage, but it also provides you with movement speed and a really neat shield. Besides, because of the Omnivamp, you'll also have really nice sustain, meaning that you'll have a much healthier clear, and that's especially important in the earlier parts of the game, where with this build, you'll have much more sustain than with the Kraken Slayer, all while still keeping the burst damage you need to one-shot squish enemy carries, like you can with the Gale Force, Dust Blade or Prowler's Claw. On top of it, the Eclipse is able to deal with tankier enemy team comps as well, because of its passive that gives a bonus percentage damage when you proc it, and because of the overall survivability of the item and the build itself provides you with. The build is a really perfect combination, where it takes the advantages of the Kraken Slayer build and it combines them with the advantages of a lethality build. Now that I gave you an idea of why Eclipse works so well on Shaco, let me go over all the other items and then the runes. For your second item, you want the Essence Reaver. Quick note on the Essence Reaver, I know it got nerfed and you guys have been asking me whether or not the item is still worth buying, and my answer is, the item got its AD nerfed by 10, from 55 to 45, but it's got its cost reduced by 100, which is quite a nerf to be honest. But here's the thing, the item was so insanely overpowered, many champions besides Shaco started building it as even their first item, and that really goes to show how strong it was. Nonetheless, when it comes to Shaco, the Essence Reaver is still really good. If we check its stats, we see that the item's gold efficiency dropped from 108% to 104%. The 4% drop is quite something, but when compared to other items, the Essence Reaver still has a really high gold efficiency, and that is not even taking into account its passive, that synergizes perfectly with Shaco's backstab and deceive. Besides, it recently got buffed. In conclusion, I for one still prefer the burst damage from the Essence Reaver over the Sanguine Blade, which can be quite good as a second choice in this build. Yet I still believe that the Essence Reaver is much more valuable, especially in the early to mid game, where having the burst damage when ganking and going for assassinations is what really makes the difference. And because with Shaco you want to be focusing the squisher targets in the enemy team. Moving on, when it comes to your boost choice, there's so much to choose from. Really the best boots in general for Shaco are the Berserker's Greaves. As I mentioned in previous videos, you might be able to also go for the plated steel caps or mercury threads, but really overall as the meta stands right now, the Berserker's Greaves are the best choice for Shaco. Moving on, for a fourth item, I'm making quite a particular choice, especially when compared to my previous builds, but for my fourth item I would go for something with either a more utility, like the Navori Quick Blades, or the Infinity Age if I already have enough crit for its passive, and I just want more damage. And that particular choice is the Lord Dominic's Regards. That's because of how well the item works against tankier champions. Now, I know that I've been complaining about armor penetration in the past and how lethality is quite weak at the moment, but both Eclipse and Lord Dominic's provide percentage armor penetration, meaning that in most cases, because of the meta, you'll encounter quite a few tanky champions, but not only, also fighters that like to build some armor and HP, and against those champions, the percentage armor penetration is much better than the lethality you get from the Prowler's Claw for instance. And that's why for a fourth item, you want to go for Lord Dominic's. Also, one more thing, I know there will be quite a few people out there asking me what the collector is in this build, and to be honest, my answer hasn't really changed by much. I've played with it, and I guess the collector can work better with this build because it's more focused on power spiking in the early game when compared with other builds like the Kraken Slayer build and the Gale Force build, but I for one still prefer the Lord Dominic's for my fourth item. And if you're considering building the collector later on in the game, then just don't. The collector is an early game focused item. Oh, hi there, I'm sorry for interrupting, but you guys have been asking me how the hell I'm always winning the early game, and I decided to enlighten you guys on how I do it. I guess you can call this a one Decillion IQ tip from your one and only the Clone, but to be honest, the tip is quite simple. Just focus the bot lane. Hashtag better bot lane always wins. For instance, in this game you can see me pressuring the bot lane beyond annoyance.
I'm dying, help me.
And that's how I win most of my games. That's the pro tip. Or is it? I was lying to you guys. That's not the actual tip. The real tip is to believe. Believe in yourself like I did. And unlock your true power. When all hope is lost, shift through space and time and clap those Rakans cheeks, motherfucker. Now for the last 2 items, you have quite a lot of choices, ranging from sustain, where you can go for the Revenant's Hydra, especially if you feel like speed pushing is something that you must focus on, or you just want the extra Omnivamp, or if the enemy team feels rather tanky. The Blade of the Roaring King is a perfect choice, because both its passives will help you do more damage against tankier targets, and because of the extra health and movement speed you get after attacking the same target 3 times. Or if you need more resistances, you have the classic choice between the Mothman Mortius, an item that could buff less badge, and now has become the best AD item against heavy AP team comp, and the other choice being the Death Dance, which is perfect against heavy AD team comps, and is just as good in general if you feel like you need more armor. Or you could go for utility, and for that you can go for the Mortal Reminder. And that's not only because the item is perfect when in need of healing reduction, but it's also because it gives you movement speed, more crit, and it's super cheap. And if you want to become stronger or faster, the Mortal Reminder is really good. And if its passive is needed to reduce someone's healing, the Mortal Reminder is a must-have. Another choice for when you need utility would be the Navori Quick Blades. Now, the Navori are best for when wanting and having the opportunity to go for multi-kills. I've talked many times in the past about items passive, but in short it gives utility by lowering your Q's cooldown when landing crits. For instance, whenever you jump in and you backstab someone, you instantly reduce your Q's cooldown by 20%, meaning that after assassinating an enemy carry with 2 or 3 crits, you can pretty much immediately Q in again and go for the next target. And the cooldown reduction is especially good as it also reduces your boxes and E cooldown. Now for your last choice, if you only want burst damage to blow up the enemy AD carry and don't care too much about utility or sustain, the Infinity Edge is really good at doing that. The only thing you need to watch out for is that its passive only works if you have over 60% crit, meaning that the item is only good as your 4th, 5th or 6th item. Now in terms of runes, the main keystone you always want to go for is Hail of Blades. The reason behind it being that not only the rune is perfect for Shaco's aggressive early game, but it also perfectly synergizes with the Eclipse's passive. The faster you land those basic attacks, the faster you'll get a passive proc. Next in the domination tree, you have a choice between Cheap Shot and Sudden Impact. I almost always go for Cheap Shot as it's much better in the early game, and because it works with slows, especially in those drawn out fights, with Shaco's E passive in combination with the 4 seconds cooldown on the rune, you'll most likely have the opportunity to get a Cheap Shot proc multiple times. And it's not even considering if you have red buff on you. Sudden Impact can also be a decent choice, especially in the mid game, where the extra lethality and magic penetration can help you one-shot your target. Next you want to go for Eyeball Collection. That's because the other choices are simply much worse, and really almost no one plays with Zombie Ward or Ghost Poro, especially because they offer little to no extra utility and they are much harder to stack. Next you want to go for Relentless Hunter. As a jungler, you really need the movement speed to be able to roam a lot, and in general be present in time to team fights and objectives. But not only on Shaco, the extra movement speed helps a lot when trying to go for a backstab on a mobile target. Revenant's Hunter might work, but I can see it work better for AP Shaco, and same goes for Ultimate Hunter. Now for the secondary tree, I almost always go for Precision. I usually take Legendary Accuracy because it becomes really valuable the second you fully stack it, and to be honest, it's not a hard rune to stack. For instance, by minute 15 in a decent game you can have it fully stacked, if not even by minute 11 or 12. Legendary Accuracy also synergizes really well with Eclipse. As you already have nice sustain from it, the bonus attack speed only helps further improve the survivability of the build. And lastly, Coup de Grace. As I mentioned in the past, it's pretty much the best choice, especially in the early game when you need to make sure that the enemies won't escape with 1 HP. The other one that might work would be Last Stand, but usually I do not like finding myself in low HP situations where I can take full advantage of the rune, and that's mostly because when I go in, I want to have as much HP as possible to have higher chances to get away. The rune works best for champions that are usually stronger at lower HP, like Tryndamere or Jax. But anyways, now that I went over the items and runes, let's get right into the game where I'll show you how well the build works. Oh, one more thing, if you guys enjoy my content, don't forget to like this video and to subscribe if you have not done yet so, as it really does help me a lot when it comes to making more content like this. Also, at some point I will start using footage from the replay of this game, and I apologize for that, but the reason for why I'm doing so is because my Nvidia Shadow Play, which I used to record my games with, crashed midway through the game. Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting again, but I want to give you guys another pro tip. Don't be this guy, don't text and drive, save a life, save yourself. Anyways, moving on, to start things off I'm beginning from the top side as usual. The reason why I start on the top side is because I'm looking to invade early. I've talked about my early game invade many times in the past, that's because I'm doing it in pretty much every game, and this is just a perfect example of why it works so well. And I'll explain you how to do it exactly and how to react in different situations. You only want to take the red buff instead of the red plus as well, and that's because they got their XP nerfed, so you won't get level 3 after taking 3 camps. That's why you want to ignore them and head straight for the enemy blue buff and frog. If the enemy jungler goes for the red buff, Raptors and then wolves, they'll still be level 2. But if they fully clear the red side, you'll have all the time in the world to catch them off guard while they're at the wolves. That's why this invade works so well. You catch the enemy off guard and you delete them with your advantage. And same goes for when you spawn on the other side. You take your blue, then head straight for the enemy red buff. It's harder a bit on this side since you'll also have to take the Krugs and they're a bit tankier, but if you catch the enemy off guard while they're asking themselves where the red buff went, the payoff is 100% worth it.
Psych!
Now to also give you an example where I was behind and I only managed to take the buffs, meaning that I was only level 2, as I see Nocturne, I place the box behind me inside the bush, and you want to do it as well when waiting for someone. The reason for doing so is because you want the box to activate as late as possible, therefore letting the Nocturne get as close as possible to me before it fears him, and that gives me more room and time to backstab him. After attacking him a few times, he ends up flashing. Meanwhile, the Echo's coming for me. In those situations, I always try to move as awkward as possible, and I always try to play as aggressive as possible. I see the Nocturne thinking that he's safe to turn around, and I jump him, surprise him with a high backstab damage, resulting in me getting first blood on him. Meanwhile, Echo is still after me. I know that I can tank a lot of damage in the early game, and you should rely on this too, because most champions at low level don't really hit that hard. Now this Q is really important. I'm doing the classic approach the wall, then Q behind in the bush trick. Or am I? Always with Shaco, Q as unexpectedly as possible in these kind of situations. Shaco wastes his flash knowing that there are only 2 places where I could have Q'd. But it's not true. With Shaco you can Q pretty much anywhere you want. Anyways, as you might have guessed, the reason behind why I queued in that place is because I had a box placed there. But either way, even if I wouldn't have had a box placed there, the Q escape would have still worked. Also, luckily the Nocturne decided not to come again, as he most likely thought that the Echo got me. On top of that, the funny thing about this is how you can see the Echo actually eat behind over the wall and check the bush as well. Bye bye. I hope this example really does show why you should always go for early game invades like that, because now I've not only placed the Nocturne behind, but also the Echo, as I wasted both his summoner spells and his time, giving my mid laner a massive advantage. And this kind of invade especially works because most players don't really know how to properly react, and that's simply because they're not used to such early game invades, and because you're Shaco, it's 100% more tilting for them. And the second you learn how to invade like this and get comfortable with doing it, you'll start winning much more often, just because of this early game advantage that not only helps you but also helps your team. Next, I'm always focusing on the Skull Crab. I'm even going for it before my buff. That's because you really don't want to waste any second after it spawns, as I was actually expecting the Nocturne to be there already, but it's not there. Therefore, we can all see that there's already a jungle difference, as I know my priorities, while the Nocturne just farms and ganks. And to be honest, the jungle role is not just about ganking. Ganking is not even close to being the main role of the jungler. As a jungler you have to assert dominance by pressuring as much as you can, by focusing the objectives and ultimately by doing so, undermining the enemy jungler so hard, rendering them useless. That's how you get the enemy team to say GGFF20 jungle diff. Here I notice that the enemy bot lane overextends, and because of my positioning I immediately take advantage of the situation. We obviously try to focus Severe, because by killing the enemy AD carry early game and by shoving the wave under the tower, she loses a ton of XP and farm. After that, when you have no other opportunities, as all lanes are pushed, you can go for jungle camps. The only thing you should keep in mind is what jungle camps you want to focus. Why? Well, that's because if you never cleared the camp before, it retains its slow level, meaning that if I never took the Gromp and I'm now level 8 for instance, after taking it, because it's still level 1, it won't give me any XP. That's why I usually like to focus on one side of the jungle. For instance, in one game I might primarily focus the bot lane, therefore I'll focus my bot lane jungle while trying to steal enemy camps from the same side. Now after recalling, for my first item I'm obviously going for the Eclipse. Yet one thing that I haven't mentioned when I was talking about the build is the Dirk. This item is extremely overpowered for its cost. The Noon Quiver is better when farming the jungle, but when fighting and going for an early game assassination, Dirk is the shit. By the way, always try to buy a control ward whenever you get back to base. In this instance, I'm also swapping my trinket for the Oracle Lances. That's because I already use my trinket charges, and by getting the Oracle, I can use it immediately as I'm invading Nocturne's jungle. And now I know he has no vision on me, therefore I jump him. You can see how good the damage from the Dirk is here. To be honest, I do fuck it up, as all I had to do was wait for his shield to expire before I eat. I do also mess up the gank on the top lane, as Gnar had both his E and flash up. But the thing is, I at least managed to force them back, so in the end I was able to take both the buffs and the Herald. What I'm trying to say is, well, it's best if you get to kill the enemies. If you do mess up, don't get tilted. You manage to push them back at least, and you should take advantage of the time you get to take the objectives. As the bot lane scuttler spawns, I go for it. In the meantime, my bot lane gets banged, and I immediately see the opportunity to counter gank. I jump in and I get the Alistar. In most cases, the better bot lane wins, so try to focus on it more than on the top lane. Also, try to protect your ADC in the later parts of the game, especially if you know they are decent players and have quite a few takedowns. Anyways, as I'm trying to go for Seaver, the Echo comes in, and this whole fight ends up turning into a massive clone fiesta. I do manage to get both Seaver and Nocturne with the help of Caitlyn, but the Echo's on me. Anyways, after escaping Echo, I luckily get the opportunity to set a Herald on his mid lane. The best time to use the Herald is after a successful gank to take the first tower, or in this instance, I am being cheeky, and after I noticed that the Echo recalled, I went straight for his tower. By taking 3 plates in combination with the first tower bonus, you get a massive gold advantage, as you get around 1000 gold. After helping the bot lane and pushing the Echo back, I try to help my Cho'Gath, who's been losing top lane pretty hard. Unfortunately, this results in another failed gank where the Cho'Gath wastes his flash, and the biggest problem with this kind of moments is that they lead to frustration. Echo actually got pretty fed as well, and we also lost both dragons as our bot lane got form and bombed. Luckily for me though, their receiver ends, and Alistar wastes his flash while Caitlyn gets him. My mid and top lane are losing quite hard again, because unlike Xerath, Echo roams a lot and he's always bot, top, and he even took the mid lane tower. Poor Cho'Gath gets ganked by Echo and dies, and I'm trying my best to carry. I managed to one-shot the Gnar, and after running around for a while I tricked the Echo, resulting into me getting 2 shutdowns. At this point we're still behind in gold, but the game is still winnable as long as I manage to secure the objectives and take advantage of every mistake that the enemies make. For instance, this Echo messing up on the mid lane. You can also see the Gnar is trying his best to focus on the bot lane, the lane that if they manage to win as well, they might just end the game. In this instance, you can see another mistake made by the enemies, as we managed to group up on them and I get a triple kill. It's not always ideal to take all the kills, as if you trust at least one of your teammate, in this instance Kate, it's best to let them get some of the gold as well. Anyways, I'm helping Kate push with the Herald while waiting for the dragon to spawn. And funny enough, Gnar manages to get himself caught. Always try your best to eliminate as many enemies as you can before fighting over an objective. In this instance, Alistar is trying to get vision of the dragon, but Ayolo tried to catch him as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Nocturne feeds top lane while trying to help Echo get Xerath and Cho'Gath, resulting in me taking the dragon, and funny enough, Gnar wins again. Now this is the most vital part of the game. Everyone is grouping around Baron, and as I said before, you always want to eliminate as many enemies as you can before a fight at an objective. Sometimes it's even worth dying as long as you can take down 2 or even only 1 enemy carry, as long as you know that without that carry the enemy team will lose the fight. I always activate the Oracle's lance before engaging to make sure that I'm not seen when jumping in with Q. I see that the Alistar is leading, but Savior is a bit too far away from Alistar, so I can jump in and insta-kill her without the Alistar being able to save her. Unfortunately though, Gnar and Nocturne are both behind me, and at this point I'm thinking that I'm done for. But because of the Eclipse's shield and the build's overall survivability and sustain, combined with the insane armor penetration, plus on top of it all, my Nami jumping in, we managed to turn the fight around. Killing all 3 of them, with Alistar trying to run away for his life. Now, I am trying to go for an ace, which is rather greedy, but Nami managed to both heal me and damage Echo as I jump in, and because of the movement speed bonus combined with the Eclipse, I managed to get Echo and then we take the Baron as a team. These are the kind of fights that turn games around, and with Shaco you have to look for picks as often as possible. Even if I would have died there and only taken down Sevier and Gnar with me, my team would have been at quite an advantage, as the only real carry left in the enemy team would have been Echo. Now that we've got a Baron, we're in the endgame.
We're in the endgame now.
Always try to split push side lanes with Baron, especially when both teams are grouping mid lane, and that's because you won't face anyone trying to stop you from pushing, and by the time the enemies are able to back off from the pressure of your team and try to stop you, you've already taken a part of their base. For instance, in this game, by the time they try to rotate and stop me, my team has already forced their mid lane tower. Also, what the fuck is the Silver doing? Getting some chicken nuggets before the end? Your base is getting destroyed, bitch! Anyways, all we have to do now is pressure all lanes and try to close the enemy team inside their base as we are trying to end. My Cho'Gath gets a bit greedy, but the situation actually ends up turning around into our favor as he baits both Gnar and the Nocturne, resulting in them dying. Next, I'm just casually Thanos snapping Silver twice. Meld Nocturne. Let the minions finish Gnar. Thanos snap Gnar as well. And my team finally ruins my fun by gathering all mid and ending the game. To be honest, towards the end I ended up dominating the enemy team so hard that they most likely didn't even want to play the game anymore. To conclude, I might have had my fun with them towards the end, but usually in those situations what you want to do is pressure all lanes until the game ends. When it comes to the endgame stats, this is your average plat hero game. I had the most gold by a long shot, and with Shaco you pretty much always have to be the first in terms of gold if you want to be able to dominate. Having a lot of farm combined with a lot of damage dealt to towers also shows that you split pushed a lot in the later parts of the game. In terms of damage dealt, being first is always best, of course, but with Shaco you're not an ADC. Also because it's not about how much damage you do overall, it's about when you do the damage. Like one-shotting an enemy carry in a late game teamfight, ultimately resulting in you winning the game because of it, so don't be too concerned about the damage. When it comes to the vision score, as long as you're second tier support you should be good. Just remember to always buy control wards, and swap the trinket for the oracle lances after you place the 2 charges. Runes wise, cheap shot did its job, same goes for coup de grace, and I managed to fully stack legends to accuracy by minute 11 and 30 seconds. Anyways, I hope you guys learned something new from this video. If you did and also enjoyed watching it and want to support me, please do like this video and subscribe if you've not done yet so. Also, do let me know in the comments how you feel about the Eclipse build or if you've played with it before. The next build guide will be on AP Shaco with Leandris, but until then, thanks a lot for watching, and as always until next time guys, don't rip and break your neck. Stay safe.
Yo, what's up, motherfucker? You want some beef? You want some beef? Come here, bitch. Take me. Yo, what's up? Yo. What the fuck is this shit, man? This is not cool. This is not right. This is fuck, man. Yo, dude, I literally just got 1v1 by a cow.
Well, I guess it could have been worse. It could have been a horse.
Fuck!